Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did you enjoy the event last night at the Rocket Center? Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to see each and every one of you there, but we were delighted to have you, General Sullivan. We were honored that you chose us for this important venue. Christy, thank you so much. We appreciate being your host. I'm well known for my passion and love for the Space and Rocket Center, but I'm not going to give you my advertisement about the Space and Rocket Center this morning. I want to talk about something that's a little more important, and it really is our mission at the Space and Rocket Center, and that's next generation workforce development. Even though we're nationally and internationally known at Space Camp, we've been going 50 weeks a year for 34 years. So we now have a cadre of about 600,000 graduates out of Space Camp. And we've learned quite a bit at that time. Because the beginning age for someone to come to Space Camp is about 9 years old. You can go 9 to 99, we like to say. Those people are now beginning to enter our workforce, having been in the business this long, and we want to show you a little bit about the techniques that we use to try to support formal education with our informal programs. Let's take a quick snapshot at the workforce. I know when you go back to your plants, this isn't what your workforce looks like anymore. This, in fact, is mission control for the Apollo years down at JSC, and if you look closely right in the middle, you'll see Gene Kranz in his white vest that he wore for absolutely every mission. And if you haven't seen the movie Apollo 13, you'll know what that's about. But you know when you get back to your offices, this is not what you're seeing around there. So let's take a quick look at this generation. This is not news to you. Next, Howard. 57% of us are 45 or older and getting older by the moment. Only 5% of our students in American colleges are studying engineering. Of those, only about half of them are going to be eligible to come to work for you and me, or to take our shoes, because of a lot of them being foreign nationals and other problems that they've had prior to getting into college. So with this generational divide, what is it that we're going to do about it? The students in this generation have the highest level of education compared to any previous generation, but there's a great imbalance in internship versus apprenticeship. And we are very much neglecting, as you probably all know quite well, the technical side, the hands-on side of that. I was intrigued by listening to one of Von Braun's teammates talking not very long ago. He had worked for NASA for 50 years and has since passed away. This was just last year I heard him say this. Someone in the audience asked him, why was it that the Von Braun team was able to accomplish what they did here in America? We had great engineers. We have highly trained people. We had skilled technicians and engineers. And the guy said, I think it was the difference in the way you train people in Germany and the way you train them here in the States. He said, in Germany, when you're going to be an engineer, you first take systems engineering, and then you specialize. Whereas in the US, as you well know, we generally speaking specialize in electronic, mechanical, whatever, and then we go to systems. And as you're all experiencing in your businesses, we have a dearth of good systems engineering. So I was very intrigued by that. And he also pointed out that they used the Arsenal method when they were developing the Apollo program, that because they didn't have as sophisticated simulation and modeling techniques as we have today, that they would go to the laboratories frequently during the day and talk to the technical guys who are building the equipment, ask their opinions, imagine that, and then go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and do that. So I think there are two critical elements there that we may have forgotten as we've moved forward into this. These folks in this generation are inundated with messaging, just as you and I are. The average person today is exposed to more than 500 advertisements a day, and that's 3 times as many as it was 30 years ago. So it requires faster and more selective processing on the point of these children. These folks are plugged into technology too, if you don't think so. 90% own a computer, 80% own an iPod, 80% own gaming consoles playing an average of 20 hours a week. 80% use 2 or more devices simultaneously while they're watching television. The average kid now spends more than 7.5 hours in front of a daily screen. I see General McQuistion must have children somewhere in her life. She's gone. 38% of them claim they can't go more than 10 minutes without checking their mobile device. And I have to admit, it makes me want to check my phone right now, you know? We're all addicts. These people are extraordinary social media activity people too. 58% used to claim Twitter all the time, they say. They use it all the time. 40% visit Facebook more than 10 times a day. More than 10 times a day, 40% of young people are checking Facebook. 76% spend more than an hour on social media daily. An hour, I used to have to practice piano for an hour and I thought it was life in hell. Imagine, social media, an hour a day, they're circling the globe and going through all those interfaces and impressions. And they have altered social interaction, and their ability to collaborate, to innovate, and to interact is diminished in this generation. There are many new forms of communication too. Texting is now the most common means of interaction among friends. I must admit, I am a texter. I text more than I email today, which is not the case maybe even a year and a half ago. 27% would consider someone a friend if they connected by social media, even if they never met the person. So you see what a difference that is in their world from the time we were that age, that they would consider people friends, 30% of them, that they've never even met before. Quite interesting. They're physically inactive, as we know. According to the President's Council on Fitness, only 1 in 3 kids is physically active on a daily basis. As of 2010, 12.5 million American children are considered obese, and that number is rising. And obesity among 12 to 19-year-olds has tripled since the 70s. This is a medicated generation, too. And I'll tell you, of all the things that shocked me about Space Camp, and I have a long history with Space Camp, so this is over the years, and is true today and increasing. American children who come to Space Camp, 40% of them bring a prescription medication with them. 40%. And they come from all 50 states, and last year 65 foreign countries. From foreign country students who come to Space Camp, 5% bring a prescription medication with them. Most of the internationals tend to bring with them homeopathic or preventative type medications that they may need, whereas amongst American children, the predominance is psychiatric or asthmatic medication. Single-parent households have an effect as well. Sadly, studies show that there are lower achievement in schools, generally speaking, with 1/3 of American children, 1/3 now living in single-parent households, that they have greater levels of psychological distress, and that they have a propensity for increased substance abuse. So what do we do at the Rocket Center? You know all of those things that I've told you over and over. You've heard them. I think I feel it a little more personally because I'm interfacing and seeing those people on a daily basis. Every single week of the year, I'm interacting with that demographic that I've just described to you. So we find that it is our mission, and we are more passionate than ever about using this platform, this NASA Visitor Information Center, this Smithsonian institution that we run out there at the Rocket Center. We find it's more and more important than ever to support formal education with our informal programs. And after our experience with no more than 600,000 trainees, these are the 3 things we'd like to do. The first thing I do to them is I want to crack their cosmic egg. And that is, get them out of that environment that I just described to you. Move them to a new place. Do you remember when you went to officer candidate school or you went to boot camp? Remember how that completely removed you from that little bubble that you were in and moved you to an entirely new place that you'd never been before and a place where you were alone. The second thing we like to do is to physically immerse them in technology. Now, they're already much wiser than we with technology, but we want to physically move them from that space, putting the technology and the physical interface together. That's the second thing we do. The third thing we do is we like to create a global crash. We like to put them together with people of other types, with people with abilities greater than theirs and abilities less than theirs, and see what happens to them and let them understand the world. Go ahead. When we immerse them, this is part of the cracking their cosmic egg. Like OCS or boot camp, we take away their mama and their teacher and their daddy and their grandmother and everybody that tells them that they want to be a dentist when they grow up. And we let them look straight into the eyes of their peers and see the future competitors and see the future collaborators that they're going to have to work with. And I'll tell you what, the light goes on. They're a different person when they leave at the end of that week, having seen those people that they're going to compete with for the rest of their life, or that they're going to collaborate with, or that they're going to work with. I think it's one of the first times that they really get to measure themselves by their own standard. In the classroom, they're measured by someone else's standards, state standards, school standards, grading standards, by one person. Here, everyone is a judge. Everyone is grading everyone else. And I think it's the first time for many of these people that they've ever been away from mom, dad, teacher, and that sort of thing. So that's part of the cracking their cosmic egg. This is part of the physical immersion. In all of our camps, in Space Camp, in Aviation Challenge, and in our robotics camp, we like to combine the application and the immersion as well as the simulation. So when you're flying, dogfighting with your buddies in Aviation Challenge, there's 32 cockpits around you, and all of you are sitting in one of them at least. I wish I could fly them all, but I can't. When we have them build a bridge or do something in robotics to construct it, they have to actually physically build something. And they fail, and they try again, and they glue it together. But they figure out, until somebody builds something, nothing happens. And that's the first time in their life for a lot of them that they've done anything physical. I mean, even gluing together two matchsticks. So we feel that this physical immersion with the technology is critical. And we see that finally, we want them to be looking down the road about what they're going to do with these technologies. In our robotics program, in 1 week, we have them build and fly an airborne robot, UAV, UAS, helicopter, whatever, a terrestrial robot, earthbound or planetary, and an underwater robot. We're using the Navy's Sea Perch program for our underwater portion. So we want to expose them to the idea that robots aren't just something that crawls around on your desk. Robots can be anything, anywhere. So our robotics program focuses on air, sea, and land. There's another thing that we do that I think is beneficial, and you may want to think about it in your lives, in your businesses, and churches, and companies, and other places, and that is, we break down the barriers of the generations. You know how stratified we are as generations? It's like, well, granddad is this, and mom is this, and teacher is this, and I'm down here. We break this down by the multi-generational learning programs that we have. We have adult camp, teachers camp, and we have family camp. And family camp, by the way, is up 44% this year. And I believe it's because people are desperately looking for a meaningful interface with their family. No offense to Mickey, but it's not the 9th time we went to Disney together as a family. Who remembers which one was which? But I'm going to tell you what, they remember when they say, Dad, remember when you were the mission specialist and I was the pilot? They'll never forget that. It's a lifetime experience. And most importantly, it allows these young people to show their skill, their technology skill especially, and to demonstrate their leadership without the interferences of generational age stratification and preconceived notions about who's best at what. And if any of y'all tried to land the shuttle simulator last night, you know what I'm talking about. Next, we try to bring them into this, what I call the global clash, which is to socialize them in a global world. So when they're down at our Area 51, which is our outdoor leadership training center, they're interfacing, they're tugging, they're pulling, they're literally lifting their teammate at some points in times. We make them interface. And we also make them interface with people of different cultures. Last year, we had 65 foreign countries represented at Space Camp. We'll have more than 500 students from China, more than 400 from India this year, and then 63 other nations. They also interface with people of different abilities. We have a visually impaired camp, and we have a deaf camp. And those are the only two camps that are separate from our normal mainstream program. Everybody else, including Down syndrome children and all the ADD and all the spectrum disorders, everyone else goes through together at Space Camp. And we only segment the deaf and the hearing impaired because we have to do different things with the screens and have interpreters. That's an activity that even we do not get to do very often. We're not really involved with every strata of society, and we don't really interface with people of different levels of ability every day. This is the rocket science crowd. So this forces them to go together, to meet people from other countries, to see that the kids from India are way better at business and math calculations than the American team. So I think it's a wake-up call for them in that sense. We also physically immerse them. We don't just say, well, if your airplane goes down, there's this thing that pops out and you get in it and you go back to shore. Nope, we make them go down the slide wire, dump their life raft, and when they hit the water, go over there, get in it, and swim back together over for the helicopter hoist to pick them up. This is our pamper pole. It's a 30-foot high pole. Your friends are tending the line. And if this isn't physical immersion, I'll tell you, nothing is, and I hope you'll have a chance to come out and do it. But I think it's very important that these people look at themselves in the face, they look at their teammates help them get through this challenge. They encourage and work together in a way that we don't have in the workplace, and I think is just as effective and should be employed there. It's also, what we're doing is about empowering everybody to get to the goal they want to get to. Going to space camp is not about becoming an astronaut. Although we have had 5 astronauts graduate from our program, happily, as well as Elon Musk and a lot of other really cool people. It's not about that. At Space Camp, we try to let them know that everyone has a role. Administrators, designers, contracts people, communications people, everybody works together to make this big military-industrial complex. Not just the generals, not just the astronauts, but all of us have a role to play, and each and every one of them is important. We try to find their skills, not try to glorify those who are out in front and in the public eye. We try to show them that science is important, that they can excel in very specific verticals, as well as being a generalist and a general manager or a CEO. And we do a lot of adaptive program. Here you see a camp we call Be Ready Camp. Now, we only do this camp a couple of weeks a year. We do it for the governor, and one of our state agencies does this. And what happens is 6th graders come to us from across the state, and they become certified, Civilian Emergency Response Team certified. And many of these children went back to their homes during our tornadoes of a couple of years ago and forced their parents to get away from the windows. They said, Mom, you can't stand at the window like this when the tornado is coming. Come to the basement, come to the bathroom, come to the closet. These people in the 6th grade were directing their families at that time, so we really try to use a lot of immersive education. We do not neglect, however, our responsibility in supporting core curriculum. For the Space and Rocket Center experience, we have taken the math core curriculum standards and we have matched them to our exhibition. So when you come through with a 4th grade class, you're going to be exposed to every math standard for the 4th grade. It's like, this rocket's 60 feet tall and you're 5 feet tall. How tall is that rocket? So we are supporting the core curriculum that they're having to go back to the classroom with by what we have in our informal exhibition. We don't neglect the human side. I was an English major as an undergrad, and I don't know how I got where I am today. But I've never forgotten the beauty and the value and the richness and the recreation of our lives that comes to us through art. We currently have Da Vinci the Genius on exhibition at the Rocket Center. The reason I do is not because of his art, but because of his inventions. He, in fact, as you probably know, was the military advisor to the Medici and invented many, many military things, ballistics, the first tanks, the first helicopters. You're aware of his flight. But I didn't realize that he was the military advisor to the Medici until we had this exhibition. So I think it's never a bad idea to remember. It often takes a poet or a politician to tell you why we're doing what we're doing. So how do we know what we're doing works? How do we bridge this gap? We know that after all of these years and all of the surveys that we've done with our Space Camp graduates, 88% of them leave our campus, go back to school, and take another math, science, engineering course that they were not planning on taking. 71% of the people over the time have entered aerospace technology, energy, or biodefense careers, and 2/3 of them, 2 out of 3, say that coming through our program influenced their decision to go in that direction. So we feel that we're working. We see this is a word cloud of the fields that our students go into, proportionate by size to the fields that they've entered after coming through our program. And I just wanted to show you a couple of our graduates. These are people who have told us their story and have told us how they were inspired to dream to become the first astronaut on Mars, or inspired to pursue a career in aerospace. One young man, when he came through Aviation Challenge, came to me and he said, he knew I was in the Navy, so he said, you know, coming through Aviation Challenge made me realize that my goal of being a pilot was within reach, So I think we did crack his cosmic egg. We gave him physical immersion. We gave him the clash with the global culture. and we set him free forward on his journey to take his place in your job and in mine. Thank you so much for coming to Huntsville. We loved having you. Thank you.